What's happening YouTube? John here, nerding out with cards. Coming out with another video, kind of back to back, but I really wanted to get out my Ozzie Smith collection. Being a YouTube watcher, a lot of the channels that I really keyed in on were the player collectors, right? Like Topps 85401 with his Bonds collection, Clemente Collector, another great channel with his, obviously, Roberto Clemente collection. That one's outstanding. We have High Pop Professor, love that channel. Collecting Maddox, both of them Maddox collectors. Big Mac Fanatic with the Mark McGwire collection. And there's others, right? But those are the ones I really keyed in on because, like I said before, I'm a player collector. My big all-time favorite is Ozzie Smith. As you can see, I got the hat that was worn when they did the on-field ceremony to retire his number while he was still playing. That was really cool. And then got the Ozzie Smith shirt, doing the backflip, birds on the bat. Love it. So then what I really wanted to do was talk about my Ozzie Smith collection. Something I've never really gotten to do, and that's why I'm kind of geeking up right now, or being a nerd. And so I was gonna kind of start with my collecting journey with Ozzie Smith, the cards that kind of make sense along the way from beginning to now. And hopefully y'all enjoy it. There's gonna be tons of Ozzie Smith videos later on down the road. Another player collector is Collecting Nolan. I really like his channel. He does the set by set breakdowns and things like that. So I'm not really going to do a whole lot of that. You want to know about sets from 80s and 90s. He does an amazing job with that, highlighting a lot of cards. What makes collecting Ozzie Smith awesome, and it's not just him. It's you think of players that bridge from vintage to modern. The Eddie Murrays, the Paul Molitors. Who's some others? Dave Winfield. Those ones that got their rookie cards before 1980 or earlier. So Ricky Henderson even. That's an excellent choice. But you really kind of get to collect a lot of really cool cards. I know a lot of people call it junk wax era. I don't view it as a negative term. It just kind of is what it is. But there's so many great cards. The modern collectors, there's artificial scarcity stuff, but the exclusive rights that Topps or Panini, or it's flavor of the month, right, has really kind of takes away from it. Us 80s and 90s collectors had so many great choices. The upper decks, the fleers, the scores, all their different little subsets and everything, like aficionados, at finest, and what have you. Collector's choice. That's really kind of frustrating set to collect, right? Because you have the silver signatures, the gold signatures. You got like 5 cards of each player, and track all those down. It's like 700 card set, and you want to get into the mathematics of trying to get all the different variants and inserts and this, that, whatever. Go watch High Pop Professor. He does an amazing job of it. And if you have any of those cards, then he kind of lets you know how big of a deal it is that you have them. So like I mentioned before in a previous video, so my earliest memory is, I believe, 1992. I know we went back to St. Louis in 95. Ozzie Smith is still playing them. But the reason why I think 92 is I remember seeing a home video at my grandfather's house, and we went back for his 50th birthday. I remember a lot of 100th anniversary Cardinal stuff happening at the time. So we, my dad was in the Navy, so us going back to St. Louis is my definition of a family vacation. Although I know now it's kind of like on the parent side of things, it's more of a real pain in the butt. Doing that myself, coming back to St. Louis for family vacations. But there was a home video where this gal, I think is my aunt, don't really know, asked me if I was looking at my baseball cards, and well, that was 92. I remember a lot of 91s at the house, 91 tops, but again, if we always have to go back in the summertime, so that's baseball season. I went with my dad's mom, or my mom's dad, so my grandfather on my mom's side, and my cousin was in town, because my dad was stationed in Virginia Beach at the time, Norfolk. He was on a submarine, and so we get to the ballpark early. I think that's kind of where I got that from. Every time I go to a ball game, I want to get there early, get my money's worth. And so walking around the ballpark, this is the old Busch Stadium, or Busch 2, however you want to describe it. So we were walking around the ballpark, and there was this line. I remember that. And we're like, well, what is that? And, well, it was Ozzie Smith. One of the reasons why I think it's 92 is because I remember Omar Olivares was, walked in behind. It was kind of funny. My dad always called him Omar Putz-Averas, but he wasn't on the team in 95. So that's why I really, really think 92. So my dad, my grandfather, he got my cousin and I baseballs as souvenirs kind of thing. And I got my ball signed. Well, unfortunately, as a 7-year-old kid, I don't know what happened to that baseball. I have a couple other signed Ozzie Smith baseballs now. I digress. So my earliest memory is that, meeting Ozzie Smith, and he was a big time player, right? This is past Whitey Ball, shortly after anyway. Willie McGee was gone, Vince Coleman was gone, Terry Pendleton was gone, Bob Forsch was gone, Tom Herr was gone. So a lot of that core group was, well, they were gone, but Ozzie Smith was left. And that's kind of a historical trait of the Cardinals since, well, I would say the 40s. But, so that Topps team set, and not positive if this is the copy of it, but right here, 1992 Topps. It's nothing special. But yeah, there's a crease in there, kind of hard to pick up on camera, but my last videos, I did a poor job of showing the backs of the cards. Unfortunately, Ozzie had been playing so long that by this point in time, that on the back, they didn't have the stadium. That's one of the cool things I thought. I remember as a kid, they show at the bottom of the card, the home ballpark, and love Busch Stadium. So, but yeah, this card right here is really my origin story as far as Ozzie Smith goes, as far as I'm concerned, far back as my memory goes. I'm 40 years old now, right? You hear a lot of collectors talk about when they started collecting, it was in the 80s, the wood border 87s and things like that. That was a little bit before my time, but yeah, this 1992 Ozzie Smith Topps card right there. Love it. And then at the same time, like I said, it was the 100th anniversary of the Cardinals. So McDonald's, back when the restaurants or, like McDonald's, and, you can get like cereal boxes and whatnot that came with cards. McDonald's had come out with this team set, and this is definitely the card from that year, but they came out with this 100th anniversary card. And my grandfather got my dad these cards. I got it now. But yeah, really cool. This is an awesome shot of Ozzie's to turn into double play. But yeah, it's so cool, right? We complain about the junk Rex area, but when you can go to McDonald's, buy cards, they came in packs, and you try to collect, complete the set. But love it. So I said 92 is kind of like the origin story. When you're a kid, um, you rely on your parents to get you baseball cards and everything. But it was 95, 96. Like I said, my dad was stationed in Norfolk, and the submarine he was on was re-home porting from Norfolk to Pearl Harbor. So he had to ride it out there. Um, I got to go through the Panama Canal. I'll talk about that in future videos, I'm sure, especially when we get to Bob Feller. But I remember Christmas one year, like I said, it was 95, 96. And my Christmas present was this 1992 Upper Deck. He had gotten it at a card shop there in Pearl. They stamped it, which, whatever, I don't care. Don't have much stuff from my childhood, but these Ozzie Smith cards, I still have them. But, as far as back as I can remember, I've had my Ozzie Smith cards. I remember I was in middle school, maybe, and I had like 100 Ozzie Smith cards, and I thought that was a lot, big deal. Back then, kids collected baseball cards, and a kid down the street, his favorite player was Cal Ripken Jr., and we always had our cards out. He had his Ripken cards, I had my Ozzie Smith cards. There was kids more into basketball. They had the Kobe Bryant or Shaquille O'Neal or something. There was another kid, he was a Braves fan, and this was like 96, 97 or something like that. But he, Chipper Jones fan. That was real early in his career. But yeah, I always had my Ozzie Smith cards. I remember my mom, she still makes fun of me. We had to evacuate for a hurricane, and one of the things I brought was my Ozzie Smith cards. Couldn't leave them. So, I remember. So this had to have been like the mid '90s or so, and somehow I got this card. We were, like I say, living in Virginia Beach at the time. There was a card store near the mall, and you got this record breaker card here, and it was my first old Ozzie Smith card. He's playing for the Padres. This is 1980. I'm like, wow, that card's old. Holy cow. So that was really cool. Another instrumental person in my collecting journey is my grandmother on my dad's side, and she would do all kinds of cool things. She lived in the St. Louis area, and knowing that we were living in Virginia Beach, later on Charleston, later on I moved back here, was she would save newspapers. She would VHS Cardinals games, Rams games, Blues games, and she'd mail them to me and whatnot. And whenever we go back to St. Louis for vacation, we'd always go see her, my great grandmother at the time, before she passed. And there was this card store in South County, St. Louis, or SoCo as the cool kids call it, called Southtown Sluggers, and they stayed open for a good while. I know when my dad retired in 02, they were still open, and I would go there. Great stuff, but she got me this card. So man, centering, the diamond, miscutting and whatnot. I didn't care. Like when I was a kid, I was like, holy cow. I got Ozzie Smith's first Cardinals card. Man. I got more copies of this now. I do keep this one in my Cardinals Hall of Fame binder. I got my Ozzie Smith binder and what have you, but always keep this card. She bought me this one. Absolutely love it. Can't ever get rid of that. And so, it was one of those things where, as a kid, I got no income. Chores for money really wasn't a thing around my house. Not that I remember. I'm sure my parents tried, and I was probably a little shithead, but the I was cognizant of Ozzie Smith's rookie card. You know, I had seen it a couple times. My parents would get me, you know, the Beckett's, and I would see it and I would see how much it was. I was like, man, that's a lot of money. A lot of money. You know, like I think this issue right here, Ozzie Smith on the front, and you know, some nostalgia right there. Bought it eBay not too long ago. 1979 Topps always has the Ozzie Smith picture. And then if you look, Ozzie Smith rookie card, man, high value, $65. As a kid, don't got that. And so I was like, man, probably never get that card, but I got his first Cardinals card. Shoot, I didn't like the Padres, so not a big deal, right? And you fast forward, 2001, I turned 16. You know, it used to be when you turn 16, what'd you do? You got a job, right? Because, you know, child labor laws, that's when you have to wait. So what I do is I got a job at McDonald's. By this time, my dad had transferred to Goose Creek, South Carolina, Charleston area. Love that area. And so, yeah, I get a job. Well, there's a card store there. No idea if it's open now. I haven't been there since 2002. But I get a job, right? And, you know, normally when kids are getting jobs, it's like, you know, they're probably more concerned about more important things. But what did I do? Got this. Ozzie Smith rookie card. Absolutely love it. This is the one I got. 16 years old. I'll never send it in for grading. I thought about it, but I'm not going to let PSA, SGC, or anybody take away how I feel about this card by assigning a number to it. You know, I did something later on down the road. Instead, yeah, it's off center, whatever. It's the notorious, you know, 1979 Ozzie Smith rookie card. You know, centering is what it is with it, right? But it's a really sharp card. Otherwise, and beautiful card. Like I said, I'm not going to let some third-party company change my mind on what this is. So, you know, I got that. Keep this one. Another thing I did, you know, like I said, now I got a job. So that card store had boxes everywhere. And what I was able to do was I went to that card store, you know, instead of chasing girls like most people did, you know, because, well, not that good looking, so whatever, they weren't paying attention to me anyway, is I was going through boxes and boxes and boxes of cards, finding the Ozzie Smith from that set, you know, so that way I could get more and more and more Ozzie Smith cards. I got a ton that way. You know, yeah, a lot of the junk wax stuff, you know, Fleers, Donrusses, you know, just getting all the Ozzie Smith cards I could find, except for doubles. But, you know, back then I could look at a card and knew if I had it or not. I can't really do that now. You know, might be getting old. Maybe I have too many cards. I don't know. But then another game changer for my collecting was eBay. You know, I first got on eBay back in 2003. You know, because my dad had retired by that point in time from the Navy, like I said, in 2002. We moved back to the St. Louis area, and Southtown Sluggers was still open. That's when I found out about Good Sports. Like I said, Southtown Sluggers, they're closed now. He retired a handful of years ago, at least that day. But the Good Sports, they're still open. I've been shopping there since 2003. Yeah, they're still open. I went there earlier this week. Got some supplies. Game plan is more stuff to buy. But anyway, so 2003, moved back to the St. Louis area. I got a job at Arby's, but I got a debit card. You know, I was 18 years old. I got a debit card. I learned what eBay was, and so what do? I go on there looking for baseball cards, specifically Ozzie Smith cards, and I found out about some cards that like I had never even heard existed. Uh, and most notably, I'll show these two big cards actually. Is the Family Fun Center cards, and he's got a couple more, but these are the bigger ones. Is you got this 1979 Family Fun Centers. Now, for a long time, I thought these were like stadium giveaways. I know the Cardinals and whatnot do stadium giveaway sets, so they used to. But yeah, this 1979 here. Awesome, awesome card. I was like, man, a rookie card. Well, that's before I knew about the rookie card rules. Not only that one, but this one right here, what I now know to be a pre-rookie card is the 1978. Holy guacamole. And I said I thought they were giving away at ball games, but come to find out, Family Fun Centers is or was an amusement park kind of place. And what they would do is they had baseball cards to sell or give out. They didn't do just the Padres. I know they did the Angels. It really seems like, especially like these um, um, very early Ozzie Smith cards with the Angels and whatnot. There's always that link in my mind with Nolan Ryan cards, because that's like the biggest cards from the sets. But yeah, and so I didn't know anything about grading at the time. I didn't know there was graded cards at the time, although I do know that they existed, right? You know, watching the YouTube and more experienced collectors. But yeah, I had kept these in top loaders, and then eventually sent them in to grading myself. I've had these for, like I said, 2003, and so I pretty much I could never really find a top loader to kind of keep them that I felt fit, right? And so then that's where grading comes in for these cards. I didn't care about the numbers that came back with these, because I'm not going to upgrade them or anything like that. But yeah, look at an 8.5 for the 79, a 7 for the 78. And this is a big time card for Ozzie Smith. I mean, I was happy with those numbers. I mean, they say I've been carrying these around for, well, now 22 years. Really good stuff. And so eBay kind of helped explode my collection. I was able to, just do quick searches like Ozzie Smith 1980, Ozzie Smith 1981, Ozzie Smith 1987, all the different years, and scroll through. Oh, I don't have that card, and get it. I know now either the landscape has changed or more refined searches are quite necessary. But yeah, I was able to get a lot of cards that way. And eventually it kind of dries up, right? I can't really find any more. The Beckett Marketplace, I've been looking on there as well. Well, I think I was up to like 600 cards or so, and I just kind of thought that's what my collection was going to be. It's my pride and joy, the link between childhood, adulthood. It's been there through everything. It's been there, when I graduated high school. It was there when I joined the Coast Guard, got married, had a kid, got divorced, got married. All these life events and whatnot. My Ozzie Smith cards were there. One of the things I do is I like to keep them in a binder, because that's how it was when I was a kid. I like my collection being binder. This is a 4-inch binder. Well, if you remember from previous video, I got 871 Ozzie Smith cards now. And so before I go really any further, I do set boundaries with it. I did, if you look here, this card, 1981 Topps Scratch Off. And if you're familiar with this set, what this card did, it came on a panel. It had like 3 other players. Well, this one Ozzie Smith, which is numbered, card number 68. It came on 4 different panels, and it's like, but the card number is the same for Ozzie, and the other players, like one of them, it's attached to a card that has George Hendrick. He's a nomination for the Cardinals Hall of Fame, so it's not like I'm going to scoff at that. Another panel is got Steve Carlton, former Cardinal, World Series champion Cardinal, and again on the ballot. I'm not going to scoff at that, but it just feels like a double. They're not expensive or anything like that. It's just, the Ozzie is what I want. Another notorious set, I'm not going to talk about the Donrusses, the ink dots and crap, is these Topps minis, 88, 89 time frame. And if you remember, they came with stickers on the back. This is my childhood card. I took the sticker off because it wasn't a Cardinals player. But this one Ozzie Smith card came with a variation of stickers on the back. It's not really a different card in my mind, because this is the Ozzie. So now the stickers. Of course, Ozzie has got a sticker. And so mine happens to come on a Terry Kennedy card, ironically enough, another former Cardinal. But that sticker also came on the back of other players' cards. And it's not really for me. I think it's kind of like padding the stats or, what have you. Maybe down the road, if I get bored or whatever, I'll go down the road of getting all those. But for me, that's kind of like an example of like, setting boundaries for your collection. Those are a couple of examples of how I set boundaries. And so, I'll get into my checklist. I compiled a checklist. Like I said, it's got 906 cards on the checklist. And you're thinking, man, Ozzie Smith has a ton more cards than 906. Well, again, that's part of setting the boundaries. There for a while, I was collecting a lot of the modern stuff. I remember when the relic cards came out. I thought those were super cool. Collected all of those. He had a bunch of cards in 97. But eventually I just kind of, I changed the scope of my collection because I can't keep up with what they've been doing the last 20 some odd years with player cards. So I eventually moved on from those, traded them into the LCS and got something else. But so that's one of the reasons, my collection is his playing days, 78 to 96. So keep moving forward. I had spent a year in the Middle East, deployed out there. I came back the end of 2018, and we got stationed in Florida in the Clearwater area. That was amazing. Maybe I'll talk about spring training and stuff like that later on. But we wanted to buy a house. One of the reasons why I deployed out there, save money, all this stuff, and wanted to buy a house. And it took us a good while. The housing market was what it was. So I ended up working with this guy. He's a Braves fan, and he was transferring, and he was going to be selling his house, and it just kind of worked out. We ended up buying their house from him, but he's big time card collector. Now he gets into some heavy stuff like Topps Dynasty and what have you. But that's when grading really entered my mind. And I was like, oh man, I gotta get graded cards, because that's what all the cool kids do, and I didn't know anything, really didn't know anything. I had heard of PSA, that's the big dog, so I was like, I gotta get a PSA Ozzie Smith rookie card, I got to. So 2020, this is March 2020. This is before everybody, like literally minutes before everybody started losing their minds because of COVID, as we all know. And I won this off the eBay for $100. Wife was not happy with it at the time, and I was like, it's birthday present because I was born in March, but at the same time, like when I think of this card, I think of becoming a first-time home buyer. This is great condition. Saw the back earlier, yeah. But here's the thing. As I've been learning the last couple of years, look at the flip, the label, whatever you want to call it. So come to find out, my Ozzie Smith rookie card is an 8. Ooh, man, great grade for that card. But is it 8? What if I send it in today? I don't know. It's an old label, PSA. Don't really care. Great copy of this card. So that's what kind of started me down the graded route. It's like, I have an Ozzie Smith now. What about Al McInnes, Isaac Bruce? My childhood favorites, and that's what I ended up doing. But I'll keep going down the Ozzie Smith route. So one of the things was, I didn't really know a whole lot. Like I said, you get these Beckett magazines, right? Like when we were kids. It's got the major sets. Topps, Donruss, Fleer, Upper Deck. There's a whole lot that you don't know about, or at least I didn't know about. And so I was on a Facebook group, learned about trading card database. And I saw a ton of Ozzie Smith cards that I had no clue about. Think about these ones right here. These would pop out of my mind. You got these discs right here from 1989. But check that out. You got this one. Well, this one looks different. And then this one. I had no idea that these were out there. And that's just an example of a resource, an online resource to help us, educate us about what's out there, what's not. So then, learn about, these Slurpee discs. That's really cool. Got the whole sports flicks thing going on. What about, foreign, whatever you want to call it, sets, but, you got Leaf. It's 85 Donruss Leaf. I always like that shot, even though it's in Wrigley Field. But it's him playing, shortstop. And then O-Pee-Chee. So you learn about a lot of cards that way. So then what I did was 2023. It's when I transferred from Clearwater to Seattle, but the ship was in California, so go out there. What they have us do is they have us stay in hotels, and because of my pay grade, I'm allowed to get a room by myself. It's pretty nice as an adult, not having to have another adult roommate that's not a spouse, and I had a lot of time on my hands. I didn't know anybody on the ship. I didn't really want to do anything. And just, sold a house, bought a house, had to get my family settled in, drive across country. And I started to become more aware of those resources, like I said. And it's like, I'm going to compile that checklist. And so that's what I did. And at first it started with the PSA Master Registry set. The thing was, when I was able to transpose that from their website to an Excel spreadsheet, there was cards I had that weren't on there. And it's like, well, how useful is this? And I think that list, once I take out the 1997 cards, because what I consider 1997 final set cards, not playing days cards, is there was like a little over 800, maybe. And then what I did was I went through trading card database and added and added and added and added and added and ended up with like 800 and I don't know, high 800s. Well, even that wasn't everything because then I get invited to this Ozzie Smith Facebook group and I'm learning about new cards from those guys. And there are some prolific Ozzie Smith collectors in that group. I think a couple of them have like an actual relationship with Ozzie Smith. That's got to be, really cool. And one of the cards that's not on TCBD, it's not on the registry list that I learned about on that group was this right here. I don't know if it's like a team issue or something. And yeah, it's got an autograph on there. I'm not sure if it's authentic or not. Don't really care because you just don't find these cards right here. So really obscure. It's blank back. But I learned about that via that group and was able to pick one up. So there's information just everywhere about these cards, and it's so much different nowadays than it used to be. So like trying to be a completionist player collector, whatever it is, it's so much more information out there. Another thing that's really kind of changed the game with my collecting is resources. I make more money now than I used to, and that's great. So it's maybe your resources change, and that's how I was able to be one of the, well, they estimate 241 copies out there for these 93 finest refractors. I didn't, especially when I learned about them, and I didn't think I was ever going to own one of these. Amazing card. Not the greatest picture of Ozzie, but look at that shine right there. That rainbow effect and being such a landmark set. It is super cool. And well, what helped me get it cheaper was look at that awesome 7. So thank you, PSA, for giving it a low assignment for a modern card. And yeah, it's off center, but who cares? There's only 241 of these out there. And I got one. That's the back. I know 93 Finest gets a ton of attention. Look at that one again. That's just too damn cool. So that's really helped grow the collection as well. As far as you saw my pickups from my most recent 5 Ozzie cards. So I just wanted to show a couple more, a couple special ones. Well, one you've seen already, but I'm going to show it again because I think it's cool. And that's the custom card I had made. I had picked up this Mag Pro slab that y'all are, I'm sure, very well familiar with. Made my own little label thingy. Looks like a Facebook whatnot, kind of like a date timestamp and what's special about this card. Even had a whole thing done up on it. And you're probably wondering, like, why the 85 design? Well, it's because I was born in 85. And so that's why I wanted to go with it. If you notice, the page, I don't know if it's gonna show up there or not. I had it open to the 85 page with tops on it because that's, again, the year I was born. So then, like I said, this was April of last year, and then last fall, Ozzie Smith was doing, and I shared this on the monthly pickups for Greg New Life Cards. Ozzie Smith was doing signings all over town. He was promoting this cocktail drink that line that he has or something. Uh, kind of tasty. I don't know. I'm more of a beer drinker than cocktails and liquor and everything. But in the town I live in, because I was home on leave, he was at 3 places that day alone. I was like, well, I can't go to all three of them. That's kind of ridiculous, even though I know people did it because the gals he was with had made that. I heard them making a comment, and so I went there. I went there with my youngest son. So he got to meet Ozzie Smith. He's only 2, lucky dog. And he's got a baseball, his baseball signed by Ozzie Smith. And so what I did was like, because that one you could bring something to get autographed. It's like, well, what am I going to bring? And unfortunately, this card was on the ship in Seattle, so I couldn't get him to sign that. That would have been really cool. What about his rookie card? This one. I was like, I don't want this card being altered in any way. And plus, I got this signed copy of his rookie card. It looks better in person than there because he did sign in the darker spot. I shared that on Greg's one of his monthly things too. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? Could have had him sign one of these 92 cards, be a little sentimental. Decided against that, and so what I had him do is I had him sign this 85 card. Because at this event he wasn't signing, didn't really care, just wanted the picture. So I had him sign this card, and it just so happens that this card was in that picture. So, where is my collecting going in the future? Well, I got about 31 cards left on my checklist. Filtered it down, and talking with the guys on the Facebook group, and my experience is here's a list of the cards I got left. The red ones, if it's got red next to it, I'll probably never own that card due to scarcity and price. The yellow ones, I don't think that they're going to be too expensive. It's just trying to find it. Weirdly enough, well, what is it? The IUS collection, really cool picture on that card, but there was 10,000 of them made, and you can't ever find them. And I can find a 101 a hell of a lot easier than that. It's the craziest thing with cards, But so realistically, I think there's like maybe 12 more cards I can get. 78 to 96 Ozzie Smith cards, and if I don't get any more, shoot, I'm happy. I can't believe that I have as many as I do. I would like to get over 875 because that's really kind of a round number. But yeah, if I don't, I'm super proud of this collection. Yeah, there's more prolific collectors out there, like I was mentioning. I don't compare myself to them just because the comparison is the thief of joy. There's always going to be somebody bigger, somebody better, somebody with more resources. Yeah, it is what it is. But for the last 33 years, that's kind of wild to think about. 33 years I've been collecting Ozzie Smith, and I'm excited to kind of get this playlist going. I definitely wanted to kind of get the what my collection is, more background behind it, so that way there's more context moving forward. I could do a year by year, set by set, or just, man, I really like this card, I really like that card, or here's a story behind this one, that one, things like that. I'm gonna really nerd out on the Ozzie Smith stuff. I think he deserves more time on the YouTube and the collectorverse. He's got tons of cards out there. You look at the back of like the late 80s Donruss cards, and he was the top vote getter in the All-Star game, meaning he was arguably the most popular player in baseball at a point in time. So really a lot of fun. Like I said, it spans vintage to modern, and because he retired in 96, and that gets into the time frame before these manufacturers really kind of ruined the hobby with the 101s and the super scarce stuff, even though that exists in 96. So I get to have a really cool experience of the cardboard history because of the 78 to 96. A lot of cool inserts and things like that. So hopefully you liked all these cards. You like the story. Um, you know, dig all the other player collectors and collections that I've gotten to see. So I can't wait to share more of mine. And y'all have a good one.